Welcome to the Inviting Shift podcast. I'm your host, Christina Smith, and each week I'll be bringing together my favorite experts, coaches, clients, and friends to discuss how we navigate midlife and all of the transitions within it. So whether you're in the mood for a lighthearted conversation about menopause, seeking inspiration to find your next passion or purpose, or just want to create deeper connection with yourself or others, this is the place to be. Share these conversations with your friends. And if you're navigating midlife solo, come connect with us, join us, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. And we will show you how the second half can be even better than the first half. On to this week's circle. Hello and welcome back to the Inviting Shift podcast. I have this beautiful, amazing panel of speakers today. We're going to have a beautiful conversation about self-love, self-care, and how it is that we do it. And I know that this season we've talked with several women about this similar topics, but we each do it a little bit different. And so I want to make sure that everybody has opportunity to really explore different ways that we're doing our self-love and our self-care. Because I know when I was growing up, it was like I went for a mani-pedi or for shopping. And for many of us, as we get into our midlife, self-care and self-love looks a lot different than just going to get a massage. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just that there might be a little bit more to it. So with that, I just want to have our guests check in with who they are and tell you a little bit about themselves. So Margaret, can you check in?
Sure. My name is Margaret Selby. I am from Boulder, Colorado, and I have a business called Thrive with Margaret and Paige with my best friend of over 25 years. We run women's retreats, transformational women's retreats for women who are busy, putting themselves at the bottom of their list, who are looking to really nurture themselves and take a intentional break for themselves. I also do corporate leadership coaching, and I think that's it about me. Yeah.
Thanks, Margaret.
Thanks.
And Jamie, you've been here before, but here you are again because we love you so much.
Thank you. I'm Jamie Besser. I live in sunny, warm Phoenix, Arizona, and I am an empty nester at the moment. I have kids in college and way out of college, and I volunteer my time now with Women Within and Western, and I lead circles. I have a circle, an online circle. I have an in-person circle here, and I am actually helping to be one of the guides this weekend for circle training as tomorrow, actually, here in Phoenix.
Well, thanks for being here, as I know that it takes a lot of preparation to do those. And we're definitely going to talk about circles because that's definitely some really good self-care for me anyway. So Nikki, tell us about you.
Hey, so my name is Nikki Yazbek, and I have been teaching yoga for about 20 years. I have a background with a master's in social work, and I've kind of moved away from that field for a while. And I have a podcast called the Connected Community Podcast, which, Christina, you've been one of my guests, and we talked about the golden shadow. And I run a women's group here in Colorado around plant medicine.
Beautiful. Yes, we all have like this slightly different ways that we take care of ourselves. And that's what we wanted to talk about today because it's not always the things. Like for me, I always thought it was about taking care of making myself feel pretty. Like that's used to be mine. It's like it was nails and it was going shopping and buying the clothing. And I'm really not that type of person anymore. So like when it came to self-care in midlife, it was hard for me because I had put it off for so many years as I was working and raising children, having a family, and moving across the country several times. I really didn't know what self-care was. And I knew that people had these beautiful morning routines, but routines felt very stifling and restricting to me. So I know that routines work for some people and not other people. So I'm curious if there's anyone here that loves a routine, like has a morning routine that they set into. I've gotten a little better with it. I do journaling, I do a little reading, I do a little meditation now, but I don't call it a routine because then my whole body would break down and go, I don't want to do that. who else might have a routine or a non-routine?
So I actually we live and we back to a desert wash, and so I go into the backyard usually with the two dogs, and I just park myself in the middle of the yard. And something about just sitting there and getting grounded, and even taking the time to think how, what intention I want to have for that particular day, while I am looking at this majestic 12-foot tall cactus. It's really it's peaceful, and it's a great way to start my day.
Beautiful. That's
Christine, I resonate with that routine thing. The maybe aversion to the word routine. I also have that. I was a competitive swimmer in college, and so my life was like super structured and lots of routine. And it was amazing. It was the best experience of my life. I mean, I loved it. It just doesn't fit for me anymore, like this like really strict routine. I like the idea of it, I think, but it also makes me want to run away. So I would say that I call in a bunch of things, but I don't do the same thing every morning. And I know I have to move my body. Like that is one of the ultimate acts of self-care and self-love for me, is to get my body moving. I live in a beautiful state, so it's often sunny. So to get sunshine on my face, and whether it's walking my dog or exercising or lifting or whatever I'm doing, and getting my green smoothie in sometime, I guess it's part of a routine, but it's not like every single morning, but I resonate with that, not wanting to have a routine, and also doing some self-care every morning anyway, even though it's not exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I don't have a routine. I like the concept of routine, but I have an aversion to it as well. But there are certain things that I weave through my week. And as you said, movement and exercise are key for me, and sunshine. I need sunshine on my body, on my face. Sometimes it's just going and sitting outside. And as Jamie said too, is taking my shoes off and grounding and sticking my feet on the earth is really helpful. So I don't have a specific thing, but definitely have patterns that I weave throughout every week.
I love that we all kind of say that, because it's really like my husband is really regimented when it comes to his self-care. Like it's a 2 to 3 hour kind of process in the morning for him to and he does the same things every morning. But to him, that feels really good. Like he knows he's doing that. And for me, it's more of a I've learned how to tune into my body and be like, what actually do I need right now? What is it that do I need to sit and pray or meditate, or would journaling be better, or would reading something be better? So that's how my morning goes. I'm trying to get back into the health. And I think that when we talk about self-care, a lot of people think it's a checklist. Like I have to check it. I have to get all the boxes. And for me, it's not about that, because if I create a list of all the stuff that I want to do for myself, then it starts to feel like, oh, here's another chore list. And then it's like, oh, I have to go do this. I have to. And that feels heavy to me. So instead, I might have a list of things, but it's like, what is it that I feel like doing? And that's a lot different, because what would actually nourish me right now? And that's what's really important for me. And sometimes it's movement. Sometimes just going outside and walking around the house a few times is helpful to me, just to get my body moving. Some yoga is something that I love to do, lots of stretching. And for me lately, because I'm in the middle of this chaotic change in my life, we're just in this weird space of challenges. Journaling has become more important to me than ever before. And I was always the kind of person who's like, oh, I don't want to journal. I used to do it a lot when I was a teenager, but I don't want to do it now. However, that's really been a really helpful way of me getting out all the stuff that I'm kind of holding within, that I can't share with just anybody, because of the situation that I'm in. It would just make it hard on other people for me to puke that stuff all over them, because it's they got their own challenges. They don't need my judgments. And so journaling has been something that's really been helpful. I finished my first journal in many years. Just this week, I was so excited. I was like, oh, I filled the whole thing. But I'm wondering, I know that we talked about routine, but what are some things that you what's your grab bag of kind of ways that you take care of yourself? I know that we have a yoga teacher here, so I'm assuming that yoga is definitely one way, Nikki, that you take care of yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, it's yoga. And then self-reflection has become really big. So when the shadow stuff comes up or I get triggered or something sets me off, it's really digging in and exploring that. I found that super helpful to my growth and exploring that. And then I think I have a really strong women's group, a women's circle, and women. I feel like connecting with women has been really big for me this year. And before, I found it much easier to connect with men, had a little bit of distrust for women. And there's something that opened up in this last year where I'm just completely open myself up to the feminine and seeing the power in that and the beauty in that and how women can hold women in such a special and beautiful and unique way. And that's been a lifesaver for me. My husband is incredible and he's so supportive, but there's something different about how women hold other women.
I love that you say that. Because the first time I went to a Woman Within weekend, I sat there on a Friday night with 60 women around me, and I was like, I didn't realize I don't trust women. Until I was in a room with 60 of them, I had no idea how fearful I was around so many women. And now today, it's like when I look for a therapist or I look for anything, I'm like, well, is there a woman? Is there a woman? Because I now trust women so much more than I would trust just any, man that I don't know. And sitting in circle with women, I don't think I ever knew before I went through my Women Within weekend how much my body craved that, like how much all of me mentally, emotionally really needed to be seen and heard and loved by women. And I know that Margaret and Jamie both have had that experience as well, and that we all, I think it's lovely that we all, I'm getting chills because I'm like, we all have beautiful women's circles, and I've sat in so many, but the power of those circles is incredible. And maybe Margaret, you can speak to that.
Yeah. It's funny, right when you said that, Nikki, I was like, yes. My go-to self-care, if I will do things for myself, the yoga, the green smoothies, the getting outside, the walking. And then I was thinking, if I really feel that kind of that next level need for self-care, I just dropped off my oldest at college, and I was like, I need some support here. So that self-care looked like reaching out to my girlfriends. I have Circle Tonight. And I don't think I said it earlier, but so I did my weekend in 1994 for One Within. And I was realizing when we were talking that was my first, I was 19 years old, my first radical act of self-love and self-care. And what has happened since then is I have been in a women's circle pretty much continuously, except for an international move there and back to London, for 30 years. And whether it's been virtual during Zoom during COVID, or in person, I've had a lot of in-person circles over the years, but that's my go-to for being seen, being heard, and also being present and witnessing the work of others, the healing of others. So all of that feels like the deepest level of self-care that I can do for myself and really connect with myself, but also give that energy back to a sacred group of women who are in that same space of intention and wanting to grow, wanting to work, wanting to share shadow pieces. And so it's been a huge, huge part of my life, pretty much since I was almost done being a teenager. So, yeah.
I was going to jump in about the importance of circles and how nourished just I feel, my soul feels. And I actually went to England this summer, which was a big thing, just leaving behind my husband and the kids who were home for the summer. And I did a whole week of Woman Within with archetypes. And something about that kind of has set me off on this, I don't know if this quest, about the importance of that self-care, and realizing that my Tuesday night circle, mine's online, it's I won't miss it. It is just something that is so beneficial And I exercise 3 or 4 days a week. And even on top of my circles, that my girlfriend connections that I have, I can go do like a really, really heavy strength training day and then realize, you know what, I need to connect. I have this going on. And so the connection with friends and then the circles, it's all part of self-care.
And what I've really been thinking about lately is like, what is the difference? Because like when I was young, I would go out to lunch with friends and like, but there's something even today that I have cultivated these like really deep relationships with women where I completely trust them for the most part. And so I also like, not only do I have my circle, and I've led lots of open circles for women to come and try out circle, which I think is like precious because you don't have the same circle all the time. And so it's always a different type of energy. But the relationships that I have with the friends that I have now, and me being of nomadic nature, I have like a scheduled call with them every month. It doesn't mean that when that time comes that we are both available. Sometimes we reschedule, but it's on the calendar so that we have to reschedule it. And when I'm talking, like I check in with them, it's like not 45 minutes. We're talking like 3-hour conversations. Like we're in for the night. And I find that so funny because so many years ago, I would have thought like going out and watching music or, going out and doing this thing with my friends was so much more important. And just a couple of weeks ago, I went to go meet a friend in Baltimore, and we were supposed to go do a bunch of things, but I got really ill because of menopause. Thank you. Or perimenopause. And I really couldn't do much. And we just talked for like 48 hours is all we did. And it was so nourishing. I just talked to her yesterday and I was like, that was so great. And she's like, I know, it was so great. So cultivating these really deep relationships with women has been one of the best self-care and self-love acts that I ever could have imagined, because I also think about, I know I'm going on and on, but I also think about, I sat on the Women Within International board for a while. And when I first got there, I was like, oh my God, these women are all queens. Why am I sitting at this table? And like, I don't know that I have gifts that these women have. And of course I don't, we all have different gifts. But as I sat there and then started contributing, I just like stepped out of my comfort zone and was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do the job. I started to like see more of myself in them, and vice versa. And there was like this whole self-love of going, wow, I actually am worthy of sitting at this table. I do have gifts. I do have something to contribute. And that has been such a gift to my own like confidence and well-being and my mental well-being. So definitely sitting with other women. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, how do I find groups of women to go sit with? Go to womanwithin.org and find that. We sound like a commercial for it, but it's just changed so many women's lives that I can't imagine. Yep. And I know, Nikki, you have a whole different type of community of women that works around plant medicine. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we have a group that has done ayahuasca, actually up in Boulder, Colorado. And the only requirement for people to come into the group is that they've done medicine once. So some people did medicine once 3 years ago and they're coming to group, and there's no requirement of how often people participate. So they can come in once or they can come in every single month. We do it once a month. And I host it at my house. And the requirement really for the group is to just show up as you are. So if you're having a really crappy day, then come with your crappy day. And if you're flying high, then come and fly high. And it doesn't matter. You don't need to be a certain way. You don't need to be in a good mood. You don't need to be in a good place. And then I also love the piece about our group where you can practice being uncomfortable, because if you can be uncomfortable, then that's where the growth is. And so if it's uncomfortable for you to speak out, then here's a place to practice. Or if somebody says something to you and it triggers you, here's a place to practice that, to be uncomfortable and to maybe make mistakes and to maybe mess things up and to be supported by these other women and to be held in love. And I feel like when we move into those places of discomfort, then that's where our greatest growth is. So if somebody's uncomfortable leading a meditation, because I always have other people open and close, like, how do you want to open? and somebody's terrified of singing, then maybe it's to sing an opening, or maybe it's to do a meditation, or maybe it's just to hold space in silence. And so I love that piece of it. And then we always say, what is it that you're needing from the group? Are you wanting people to hold space? Are you wanting reflection? Are you wanting advice? So that you're getting what you need. And we're also not rescuing each other. So if you're in the middle of your process and you're crying and tears are just flowing down, we're not going to run over and hug you and hold you. We're going to hold you in your process and allow you to sit in that and support you in that way, instead of trying to grab you and pull you out of that process. And so really a lot of the women are coming into this group and they have had these profound experiences, and they don't have a community outside of this group to speak in that way, where they can just come and be exactly as they are and to share from their heart and from their soul their deepest, darkest secrets. And there's no judgment, and everything is just held in love, and everything is confidential. And it's so neat for them to have that one place where they can go once a month. And sometimes they just wait, they hold it all in, they come once a month, and they let everything go. And it's like a safety net for all of us, and it's become so meaningful. And it's not about the medicine at all. But I do think that when people do ayahuasca medicine, it takes a certain type of person to do it, because when you do it, you face your deepest, darkest shadows. They come out in that plant medicine, if you like it or not. And so anybody that's walking down that path of having done that medicine, they're willing to go there. They're willing to look at their shadow. They're willing to go into those really hard, uncomfortable places and find that self-reflection. And I also think, since it's once a month, it's also this good monitor point where it brings you back to baseline. So maybe that whole month you took really bad care of yourself, and then you come back to the group and you remember, oh, self-care is super important, or, oh, my sisters are super important. And so it's kind of a touch point for all of us, and it's been incredible, and it's been so supportive and just filled with love.
Sounds very similar to a woman within circle, just without the ayahuasca requirement. I mean, that's exactly what we do. And some of us, like me, have not been brave enough to think about plant medicine yet, because my husband's done it and I don't know. I'm still doing research on it. So maybe tell us a few benefits that you've gotten just from the ayahuasca, from the actual plant medicine journey.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I went, I felt like I was sleeping, and I didn't know I was sleeping. It's like life had just gone. I have a kid, I have a husband, I work, and life just got carried away, and I forgot who I was, and I didn't even know when that happened and how I forgot. And then with the plant medicine, I mean, really, you walk through this door of shadow, and it's really intense. It's not always intense for everybody, but it can be. And I guess you have to be willing to look at that when you go in for that specific plant medicine. And so it really woke me up, and it brought up some trauma that I buried for 40 years. And I didn't know. I had processed it mentally. I had talked about it, but I hadn't processed it somatically. And so it was a lot of somatic releases. It was a lot of shadow coming forward that I had shoved down and forgotten about and suppressed, and thought I had covered that. I checked that box and it was done and over with, and it wasn't. And it brought me back into my body, and it brought me back into my spirit, and it connected me to all these women, and it deepened my relationship with my husband, and it deepened the relationship with myself. And I feel like, I was sleeping. I was just completely disconnected from who I was and what I was feeling, and everything that was going on in my life. And so it brought me home, and it's been beautiful. And I can't say it's been easy. It's been really challenging. And ayahuasca is one thing. You go in and you have that experience in plant medicine, but the real work begins after the ceremony and that integration piece. And that's when your shadow comes up and it slaps you across the face and it tests you. And then that's when you have that decision of which direction you're going to take when that shadow comes up. Are you going to go down your old path, or are you going to walk down this new path and do things in a different way? And so the first time I did it was a year ago, and I'm like not the same person I was a year ago. And not even close, not even at all. And anybody that would know me would say that. Like, there's just been so much growth and transformation. But again, it hasn't been easy, but it's been beautiful.
I love that, because I think about midlife, and I think it's like the time where I've learned to come back into my body. You were saying about how you come back into your body. And I think it's a time where, as Margaret and Jamie both introduced themselves as just recent empty nesters, or at least, starting that process of letting go of the children, like suddenly we have a little bit more time and space than we had before. And so for me, it's really given me the opportunity to stop and slow down a little bit, or give myself permission. I mean, I guess I could have always slowed down, but I didn't feel like I could before. I didn't feel like I could. So now, as an empty nester, it feels like I've had so much. I've been an empty nester for 4 years or something. So I've just expanded and been able to like give myself that time to really get into my body and out of my head and be a lot more conscious about it. Be a lot more conscious about it. So I know other women have experiences about this. How do we all get back into our bodies and get out of our monkey brains?
So I've been an empty nester. This is going on my second year. And I think just even like for me, being home alone, like in my house when my husband is away at work, something about being home alone, even if I'm just puttering around and trying out a new recipe, it just lets me, again, doing that, like that check-in. And food, like cooking, like I knew that I liked to cook way back when the kids were in the house, and now I like to do it for a different reason. I like nourishing myself. I like coming up with what's going to make me feel the best.
Yeah, I agree. Cooking has become a lot easier, or a lot more interesting, I guess, to me. Like
Interesting. Yeah.
I have time to do it. I'm not like, okay, well, dinner's got to be cooked between 5:30 and 6:15, and then we got to, do this and that and the other thing. It's like, put all the ingredients out. I can chop, and I'm like not in a rush at all, which makes it so lovely. Margaret, you look like you've got something to say.
Well, getting back it was the getting back into your body. I mean, I'm in my body a lot. Like I feel like I'm a very somatic person. Hiking and lifting weights and working out in that way, it does get me in my body. But really, it's yoga where I have to stop and match my breath with my movement. I think I did yoga just a couple days before I left to drop off my daughter for college last week, and I was not in my body. I was not connected to the earth. Like I just felt like I was kind of floating. And through really intentional breathing and intentional movement and pairing those together, at the end, I felt like, boom, I am grounded to this earth and I am back in my body. And it definitely takes effort and intention and consciousness. And I sometimes run around like a crazy chicken with my head cut off. And it's really taking the time to slow down. And it's something about matching. And I know you probably know this, Nikki, like just matching the breath, the movement, and really becoming very conscious. So
for me lately, I've been like really in love with breath work. I've been like trying all different kinds of breath work. I think because it's something that you have, like having to pay attention to your breath. For me at least, I can't really think of anything else. Whereas like sometimes if I'm lifting weights or I'm doing something else, like it's just like I could still be thinking about my to-do list while I'm doing it, right? I might lose count of my reps, but that's okay. That to-do list is obviously more important. And it's been one of the biggest challenges of my life is just to be still. Like just to come and be still. It's why one of the reasons I love still staffing women's weekends is because it like forces you to come, be in the circle and be still. And that has been a lifelong challenge for me. I'm just so used to, I got that production addiction in my head where it's like, I must be doing something productive. I must be doing something that's going to be helpful. And so to slow down, which is really funny because I do visualizations, I have like over 100 visualizations for everybody else. But like one day I was like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do a visualization. And I could just feel it in my body going, okay, how long is this going to take? What's the gist of this? Can we just speed this up? Can we just think about this? I like, just tell me the dialogue and I'll figure it out in my brain. Because my brain loves to think that it's the most important thing. And so it will automatically say, no, I'm in charge. Let me just figure out the logistics. Let me bypass this by just doing the data. And there's really something precious about allowing ourselves just to be still and like thoughtless, I guess. It sounds like such a negative connotation to the word, but really thoughtless, like not having to think about the future or the past or what's going on or any of that stuff, and just being able to be like, ooh, take a breath. How is my body feeling? And it's usually when I can't do it or when I'm most challenged by it that I need it the most. I love that quote that says, everybody should sit in meditation for 15 minutes. Unless you're too busy, then you should sit for an hour. And it's like, that's exactly it for me. Like, that's when I need it the most, is when I'm most resistant to it. And I've gotten a little better at getting my inner child to come along with me and be like, I know we want to get stuff done. It's okay. We're doing this because it's good for us. And that's the real change that has happened for me in midlife, is that I've changed from that mindset that says like, here's your list, hurry up and get it all done. Instead, it's like, I'm actually going to enjoy having my smoothie in the morning, not just like shove it down because it has healthy stuff in it and I should do it. And I'm going to actually enjoy lifting weights, not, just try to get it done. And because for me, it was always like a means to an end, like, let's hurry up, get it done, hurry up and get it done, which in my life has stopped me from really enjoying the journey. And really, I get to the goal and I'm like, oh, so what? I got all the things done and I don't feel good about it. And being able to tune into my body has been from slowing down. So how about everybody else? Am I the only one who felt like we were in this rush? Like, I felt like I rushed so much through all my goals, through all my days. And then one day I woke up and I was like, is this where I was rushing to? Because I don't know, like, did I miss the whole journey just to get here?
I'll quickly bring up the dreaded nap, because I have a very hard time slowing down. So I say the dreaded because there's a part of me that really wants to just lay down every once. It's not that often, but every once in a while, I just want to take a nap. And then I tell myself, well, I've got too many things to do. And again, right before I dropped off my daughter, it was like the weekend before, there were a lot of things to be done, a lot of just errands and things to do. And I had to lay down. And then I was judging myself about it. And it was the opposite of self-love, doing the inner critic thing, until I finally was like, enough. My body needs to lay down. I am in an emotional state and I'm going to lay down and take a nap. It was like 20 minutes, maybe. And it's having the consciousness to just stop, take the pause, stop letting my inner critic tell me things that are the opposite of self-love, and just take the damn nap. I don't know does anyone else struggle with that? I don't know if I'm the only one.
So I don't really struggle with exactly. What I am finding, I'm a lot more intentional now about, I don't want to say just doing nothing, but if I need time to think about, okay, I'm an empty nester, I have a lot of free time now. What do I want to create? And just even taking the downtime to, to not fill it up with clutter and go on and on and on and constant movement. I do like taking the time now, and we're almost at the point in Arizona where I could sit outside. I can sit out in the morning still. I can't sit out the middle of the day yet. And again, enjoying just the outside, the outdoors, and figuring out what's next without having a specific goal in mind.
Yeah, I can relate to the breath piece. I mean, like how important breath work is and connecting to the breath, because I feel like that's a way to connect to the body. And Margaret, you were talking about yoga and connecting with the breath, and that's the key. That's the key. If you're not connecting your breath with yoga, you're just moving. And the key to yoga is really that breath connection. So it's a moving meditation. It really is. It's a moving meditation, and it calms your whole nervous system. And it can be really beautiful. And then I can also relate to running around like crazy and feeling a little bit guilty if I'm going to stop and take a nap, or I'm going to stop and just chill out. But I have slowly started to find stillness in activities. So where I would be in my mind washing the dishes and trying to go from point A to point B to point C, which I still do sometimes. It's finding mindfulness in those mundane activities. And then there's a lot of joy in them, where before I'm trying to hurry up and finish it so I can go to the next thing. And now I'm actually enjoying the process a lot more.
I love that. Never thought of dishes as self-care, but yes, if you're being mindful while you're doing it, like what a break for your brain, because I think that's what we're really craving, is like to give our brains a break. And for me, what has really shifted is the whole perimenopause has my body doing weird things. And so there are times where I just have to be like, okay, Christina, you just have to lay down and be still for 30 minutes. And that's just the way it is, because whatever we're about to do is not going to turn out well if we continue on with the energy that I have right now about it. Is like, it's going to be bad and we're not going to like it. It's not going to turn out good anyway. So let's just go take care of ourselves first, which, I feel like if that would have been taught to me during puberty, I might have gotten through that a little bit more smoothly. But we aren't taught to really take care of our bodies when we're young. I know, at least in my house, it was like you always had to be busy doing something. And if you weren't, somebody would give you something to do. And so, like, really allowing myself to be like, yes, I know we want to be productive. I know we want to get this next thing done. And in order to do that in a mindful or a good way, I need to just give myself 5 minutes to change my emotional attitude, to maybe do some breathing, to do something that is going to help me get back into my body, because this hormonal state that I can get into sometimes is really not helpful to do a lot of the things that I want to do.
Mhm.
And I allow that to be my body just telling me, hey, this is time for you to just slow the hell down. Like this, listening to my body has made things so much nicer in my life, a lot less chaos, a lot less feeling like I'm going against the flow of things. When I listen to my body, I feel like I'm more in that flow of things. When I'm listening to my breath, and how is my breath? Am I even breathing? There's so many times that I'm like, I notice that I'm not even breathing. Like, whew, what am I holding my breath for? And we can't do that unless we become really conscious of where we are. And I've just found that in midlife, that's really the space that I'm in. And maybe that's us turning towards our crone archetype or something. But it is really helpful for me just to, like, I get so much more done by slowing down now. It sounds insane to my younger self, but it's like I get so much done and in such a better way. Anybody else experience that? Something like it? Okay.
Yes,
You
and
don't
I
have
still
to.
struggle. It's just like, yes, I totally am with you and I get it. And I'm still in the process of learning it, that I can't say like, yeah. It's like I'm experimenting with all that because I know that's what I need, is that slowing down. That's the intentionality, becoming really present. Like what I think you were kind of getting at, Nikki, like being really present while I'm washing the dishes. But I feel like it's such a journey and such a struggle because my MO has always been go, 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 move, move, move. And my perimenopausal body too is like, you need to chill. You need to slow down. And that is self-love and that is self-care. And even if it's the micro self-care of 3 breaths, like those micro moments of one breath, just simply, I do this thing when it's my birthday, but on the clock, I take a breath, sometimes more, and I stop for a second, and that feels like a micro moment of self-care and self-love. And if I can remember to do that most days, it helps. It really does, even though it's super short. I try to do it the whole minute. Just really breathe and focus and be present. Like, what's going on around me? How do I feel? And breathe.
Yeah. And thanks for being, honest about that, because here's the thing. I can talk about this all day. I do not want you to meet me and expect that at any moment I'm always going to make the right choice, because that does not happen. There's a lot of resistance in me in different spaces to like allow myself that. So we are all in different phases of this. And even like Nikki, who's been like teaching yoga for 20 years, be like, oh, she knows all about being in her body. And I'm sure she just, when she's not teaching yoga, she's just like in a corner, namasteing. And I'm sure even you have had some challenges, because even with the, what you were saying about the plant medicine is like, that's opened up a whole nother layer for you to like look at and dig into.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's always a work in progress. I have to say though, I mean, this is a tiny bit off topic, but you're talking a lot about perimenopause. And for me, self-care I was having all those perimenopause symptoms, insomnia, mood swings, night sweats, brain fog, like you name it. And I didn't know what was going on. I went to a functional medicine doctor, and she did blood work. And a lot of my blood work was in range, but it wasn't optimal. And come to find out, I have hypothyroidism. And so when she put me on medicine for hypothyroidism, and I started like taking a few supplements so that my blood work wasn't just on the low end, but I was in the middle and I optimized it. I can say that all of that stuff went away within 2 weeks. It was insane. And so sometimes I think we might need to get through that perimenopause stuff, but I also think for me, self-care was going to a functional medicine doctor and actually doing hormone replacement has been life-changing, and optimizing my labs and biohacking my labs has been ridiculous. And I'm so glad I did it, because I didn't have to be suffering. I was suffering. And immediately I didn't even know I had brain fog until it was gone. And then I realized that I had been in a cloud for so long and didn't even know it. So I would encourage people to consider that if that's not something that they've done.
I have my appointment scheduled, but until then I get doctors, they take so long to get an appointment. It's like it's months away, and it's like, okay, in the meantime, here's what you can do, Christina. Like, you need to calm down and just like allow, like, at least it helps me just to even be like, when I'm feeling extra emotional or like mentally foggy, it helps me just to say, this could be menopause. Let's just be kind to ourselves. I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, we're okay. We are safe. We're just really uncomfortable. Because for me, it's really uncomfortable. And one of the symptoms I get that really irritates me to no end is itchy skin. I feel like I'm itching my skin all the time. And it doesn't matter if I moisturize. It doesn't matter. Like, the inside of my ears itch. Like, that's how crazy it is. And being physically uncomfortable can automatically like push me into mental and emotional like disease or unwellness anyway, whatever that word is. It can make me really uncomfortable there too. So the only way that so far that it really gets me through those moments is just to have compassion and be like, okay, what can we do? Like, almost remothering myself, right, with a mother that I would have wanted, and be like, okay, Christina, what is it that little girl, what is it that we need? Do we need some ice packs? Do we need to take a shower, scrub? Like, what is it that we need to do right now? And so doing that has at least created some kindness to myself. And I gotta tell you, Nikki, there's like 10 years ago, I would have been like, I can tough this out. It's fine. I can figure it out. And now I'm just like, if there's a solution.
Oh, me too. Me too. I was like, I can get through this. I don't need anything. and then I went on for 2 weeks. I'm like, oh my God, I did not need to suffer.
Yeah, never mind. And it's almost like getting glasses, I'm sure, like where you were like, I didn't realize how fuzzy my vision was until I got these glasses. So I look forward to it. And I know that Jamie's giggling because she's talked about this before in the podcast, where she didn't even notice menopause. It just went right over her head.
My mom had a really, really simple time going through menopause, and I was very well educated about like what might happen, and nothing happened. I just, about 10 years ago, everything just stopped. And the one thing that I am much more aware of now is bone density. As I've gotten older, and which my mom, again, did a really amazing job educating me. And I will say, I am 65 and I'm not on any prescription medications, and I do some supplements, and some of it may be hereditary, but a lot of it is again that intention and my attitude to aging, and being aware I'm in circle with other women going through menopause right now, and being compassionate.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jamie. So I know that we could talk all day about this conversation about self-care and self-love, and there's probably 100 aspects we haven't even talked about yet, but we got to shut this down. So before we go, if everybody could just offer one piece of advice or a takeaway that you would want women to think about, and then, our guests are welcome to share whatever it is that they want to share and how to connect with them and whatnot. Check out the links in the show notes below, because that's how you're going to be able to connect with them all. I guess my little piece of wisdom, let's see, would be find a way to give yourself permission to slow down. Is one of the most important things, like slowing down. It's like, part of me can still cringe when I think about slow down. I don't got time to slow down, but it's like, whoo, and then I go back to my breath, and that's what makes me go, oh, right. I'm a human being. I'm a living creature. It's okay for me to slow down. That's what I would offer. Margaret, how about you?
I think I just talked about those micro moments. I feel like there's a spectrum of self-care and self-love. So we have micro moments of taking 1 to 3 breaths, just stopping and really paying attention to what am I feeling in this present moment. And then I've been dying to tell you all this. I'm going to Bali next week on a women's retreat. I am going to be a participant, and I'm very, very excited because, like I said, I facilitate women's retreats for others, but I haven't been a participant. So I'm going next week. So that was what I'm getting at, is like the other end of that could be a big piece of self-care, or you go halfway across the world, or just go on a retreat or something like that, where you can really be intentional with the self-care and maybe then learn some tips and ways to bring it back into your everyday life, from the micro moments to the medium-sized self-care. And then every once in a while, these bigger pieces of self-care and self-love, where you're simply taking a whole week maybe, or 5 days or 3 days or 8, whatever it is, for yourself, for your heart, for your soul, for who you are as a woman in this lifetime and on this planet right now. So I think it's the spectrum, the micro to the macro. And I think it's important to really acknowledge that we need all of those different things.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, because the micros are good for like every day. And then I think like once a week you should do something. I should do something for myself that is a little bit bigger. Maybe takes a few hours. Then maybe once a month or once a year you do something a little bigger for yourself. So beautiful. Thanks, Margaret. Oh, and how can they reach you? They're going to reach you during the links below. And so if y'all need to take those macro moments, Margaret has got the space for you.
We do. Yep. Our business is called Thrive with Margaret and Paige. And we also have a retreat website for our retreat in Haramara next April 2025. So that's a great place. And margaretandpage@gmail.com will be listed. So those are great places to find us.
Beautiful.
And, work with us. Thank you.
Yeah, because I've seen your retreat. I've seen pictures of your retreats, and I'm like, dang, man. That looks like a lot of fun, a lot of self-care right there. Lovely. Thanks, Margaret. Jamie?
So my words of wisdom here would be to make self-care and self-love. It's an everyday kind of thing, that it can be, again, the smallest thing, from going and sitting outside to going halfway across the world to England to do a workshop. And just making yourself, I make myself much more, I'm important, and giving myself that permission daily to do something kind for myself.
Caring for yourself in a way that you would care for somebody else, like that you really love. Like, hey, you're important. And so often we'll do beautiful things for our best friends, but we won't necessarily do those same things for ourselves. I mean, I've sent friends flowers so many times. Have I ever sent myself flowers? No, probably not. So something to think about, right? Thanks, Jamie. And if you want to connect with Jamie, you can also reach out through me. And I believe that we're going to list your email just for Woman Within. Is that right? So if you have any questions about Woman Within, Jamie is a really good woman to talk to, or circles. Nikki?
Yeah, so my advice would be to play in the uncomfortable, play in the shadow. I talk a lot about that lately, and I just think that that's where a lot of the growth is. And sometimes when we're older, we get stuck in our own patterns. And so maybe it's, doing something outside the box that makes you a little uncomfortable. Maybe it's a conversation. Maybe it's going to a party by yourself. Maybe it's going to dinner by yourself. Maybe it's going and doing a retreat, whatever it is. It's just pushing that comfort zone, pushing our edge a little bit. That's where growth happens. We can't always sit in a place of comfortableness. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, because I think that that's lovely. I mean, so often we think self-care and self-love is about feeling really good and fluffy and whatnot. And it's really about what is the best thing for me right now. And sometimes that is, you got to look at this hard thing, or you got to make a boundary and feel okay with that. And all of those things that feel really hard to do. I mean, I feel really proud of myself looking back at the hardest things that I had to do and knowing that I got through them, rather than, oh, that was a fluffy time and that was nice and cozy. And I mean, we need those times too, but it's not balance. We need balance as human beings. We still need to grow. And so that's one of the parts that we take care of ourselves. And how can they reach you?
So I have a website, Nikki Y Yoga, NICKYYYOGA.com. And so people can find me there. I do online private yoga classes. I have the Connected Community podcast, which is on YouTube and all the audio platforms. And soon I want to be working with people to integrate their experiences with plant medicine.
Nice. Beautiful. So, and if you have a question about her ayahuasca group or the plant medicine group, you can reach out to her as well. Thank you all for being here today. What a lovely little conversation we had. Thanks to the audience for tuning in. If you're still listening, we really appreciate you. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in. It really means so much to all of us. If you're craving some real connections and you want to have these midlife conversations, join us for our next New Moon Circle. You just go to invitingshift.com/new moon and join our community. Share, support, be inspired by a group of fabulous women just like you, navigating midlife and growing connections with themselves and others. Want to support our show? The podcast world is so competitive, and your likes, subscribes, and reviews make a huge difference. Seriously, those small little clicks help us reach more amazing women. Be a hero and spread the word. I'll see you next week.